Hey guys! So today we are going to talk about power precisions and the role that I think progressive web applications is going to has in the IT power struggle. Now let's get into it. What in the world do I mean about IT power struggle? Well, for this to make any type of sense, the first thing I need to say is that this is wild speculation on my part, and this is more just kind of me presenting a mental exercise or presenting some thoughts that I have on this, on progressive web applications and so forth, because I have analyzed this a little bit and I have some thoughts on it. So let's get into it. So Google, the company we all know and love, well, it kind of depends on your perspective, I suppose, but I'm a big fan of this company. They are the biggest promoter of progressive web applications. Hands down. They are, without a doubt, the company that pushes the hardest for this. The same thing goes for service workers and all of these technologies that are very oriented around the web platform and making that a platform that can go offline first and so forth. And you know that I have kind of mentioned a few times earlier why I think this makes a lot of sense. But the thing that is a little bit of a wonder here is, if you think about it, Google is also they are the maintainers and the owners of the Android platform. And you know, or rather, at least in my opinion, progressive web applications is the single biggest threat to the mobile development environment. Because if it ever gets to a point where progressive web applications really get a strong adoption and it becomes more of a standard, which I think is going to happen, that will literally mean that the amount of use cases for mobile development goes down quite sharply. But that's a really big threat to the mobile mobile developers. Now, what I think is extremely interesting is that if you think about that, why in the world would a company like Google, for example, create a project or push a technology that rivals their own products? I mean, you don't see many companies that try to, how do I put it? Ideally, companies want to push their products, and they don't really create things that rivals their own brand, if you will. So why would Google do this? Well, this is where I get out into speculation world. You see, my guess is that Google realized something a long time ago, and I think it's the same sort of mentality that Virgin has, or rather the thing I see. You see, when you have a brand that is strong enough and it's big enough, you start to kind of realize that the power of your brand does not come from a single product. Because there's no way that you can create a single product that is right for absolutely everybody. You can never do that. But what you can do is you can create multiple products that simply they appear to be in rivalry to each other or in a confrontation, but they're actually not. They're simply catering to people who would have looked somewhere else in any other scenario. Because remember, there are people who want to be on the mobile platform, and there are people who want to be on the web platform. And it doesn't matter if you push the web as much as you possibly can if you are trying to sell it to people who, for whatever reason, need to be on the mobile platform. So you could either have the perspective that I'm going to only focus on web and try to convert everybody over to that, or you can simply provide a platform for both. Because at the end of the day, if you are the company behind both platforms, sure, one of your companies is making more money than the other, but at the end of the day, it's still coming back to you. Doesn't matter if you split it, it's still coming back to you. Now, there are, of course, perks and downsides. There's all kinds of circumstances as to this situation. But it's the same type of deal that Virgin did. Like, instead of having one big massive super company, you split it up into smaller companies that just work as an ecosystem. There's a lot of benefits to that. But what does this have to do with progressive web applications? Well, you see, I believe, honestly, that Android as a platform is simply a way for Google to maintain a power position over the mobile landscape. But I think that their end game is to get everybody back to the web, or to get as many people as possible to stay on the web, because they have a vested interest in the web platform. Why? Well, now we're going in further into speculation mode. You see, the big power companies, the IT, really big IT companies, they all have a source of power that keeps them where they are. For Microsoft, for example, it's their dominance on the desktop market. If they ever get to, like I've said this 100 times, Microsoft as an innovation company has more or less kind of lost their edge a long time ago. The two legs they have to stand on right now is that they are the default for almost anything that is not a MacBook. Like, if you buy a desktop laptop thing, like they have an entire generation of people who were brought up on their operating system. So as long as they keep their power position as the default operating system on sold laptops, that's a very big power position for them. It's a big source of income and brand awareness. Second thing is that they have a very intimate relationship with the corporate world. C# and so forth is extremely popular, and like their cloud solutions is extremely popular in the corporate industry. These are the two biggest things that they need to protect in order to keep their power position in the marketplace. Now they are under attack on one of those legs, which is the default operating system. There are other operating systems like the Debian distributions and so forth. I've actually read stories where Microsoft will actually have gone in third world countries where other organizations have been trying to sell more affordable laptops with the default operating system being a Ubuntu distribution, and Microsoft will actually these scenarios gone in and try to offer an even better deal just to maintain their control as the default operating system. So for them, that's big money. That's very important. Apple, their absolute biggest revenue stream, their power position comes from their brand. They are associated with, like, the quality of their phones and their laptops is the main reason why they are in our power position. That's the whole brand. And that's also a little bit of a problem. That's slightly like they're facing off against the challenge where they don't have Steve Jobs anymore. They have to be this innovative design company that has to push the boundaries all the time. And as long as they can maintain the sensation of of their brand, like that the brand is so valuable and that their phones and their MacBooks are high quality, that's where they're going to be able to maintain that power position. Facebook is probably the company who is hanging the loosest right now, because it used to be that they were the only most massive social media platform in the world. They still are, but they are losing that power position. They're fighting fiercely now to keep people on their platform, but people are starting to start to look around at other things. So they're buying companies left to right to kind of maintain that position. Can't really tell you how they're going to solve that one, but their power position comes from that everybody's using that platform. And then we have Google. What is Google's power position? I mean, it's so hard to kind of narrow all of this down to one single thing, because these companies are massive. Like, they have a size that you cannot imagine. It's hard to perceive how big they are. But Google's strength, their biggest power position, is their search engine. That search engine is the reason why they got to where they are today, and it's the reason why I think that people underestimate how powerful Google actually is. Imagine this: when I was working at Ticketmaster, they have an entire team of people dedicated to just doing SEO optimization to cater to Google. That's the biggest ticket item in their entire backlog, like making sure that the search optimization is perfect for Google search engine. And most people do cater to that search engine. And that search engine sits between almost every single human being on this planet and whoever wants to contact them, who wants exposure. They literally sit as the middleman between almost every human being and all information on the internet. That's their power position. And that power position is depending on that people stay on the net, on the internet. If it ever got to a point where, say, people actually stopped using the internet and started sending data over more private networks, the spiders and all the indexing of web pages and all of that stuff, like a search engine, would lose most of its relevancy. And that's why my guess is that they're pushing progressive web applications and focusing so much on the web. Because, as I said, I think that they know that that's where their power, like their power structure, Google's entire power structure comes from that platform. It's not like if they didn't have it that they wouldn't be around. It's more that their dominance as like their power source comes from the web platform. And the other companies I've mentioned, it's the same thing. I mean, it's not like they go away. I mean, these companies are massive. Like, if a company like that starts to go to bankruptcy, it will take 10, 20 years for you to even see that they are going down. So that's why I think that there's more to this progressive web application idea than meets the eye. It's hard to say when you're at the bottom and looking up, because, I mean, you have to kind of put this in perspective. You and me and everybody else, I mean, we don't, like, when you're not part of those discussions and all these ideas and like these plans, it's very hard to foresee how the people at the top actually think. But all I can say is that this is what I'm seeing, and this is where my speculation kind of ends. I think that progressive web application, it's going to be a great thing. And I really do think it's going to be something truly fascinating and new that comes to the web platform. But I don't think it's just because it's a good idea. I think that there is more bigger political agenda behind this idea to begin with. Now, Google is of course not the only company who's pushing this sort of thing, but they are the strongest advocate. And I think, as I said, I think it has to do with that they understand where their own power source is. And the search engine is their biggest source of strength. It's actually funny because I honestly think that Google have tried to distribute their brand. They have tried to split themselves up and try to kind of diversify as much as possible. And I think they have done so because they faced the same problem that Microsoft faced back in the day, where they grew so powerful. Microsoft became so powerful that the US government actually had to go in and stop them because they virtually owned the entire IT world. Google is in a very similar position, and that's why I think that they are trying to be all over the place so that their public relationships is as high as humanly possible, because if they are too powerful. I'm sorry, but Google is way too powerful. If you don't, because remember, if you just think about it, if they sit between you and all the information, what guarantees do you have that they are not systematically showing you information that benefits them? Well, you don't. I think it's hilarious how people criticize Facebook for doing this. Guys, don't you understand that this is what these personalized algorithms are all about? It's about this exact thing, that you have people who literally sit and control everything that you say or you see, and that's where Google is. So that's why I think that they are trying to be everywhere at the same time to kind of mitigate this idea that they are about one thing, because I think that that's a political sore spot for them, and I'm pretty sure that they invest billions in trying to convince the US government and the EU and so forth that they are not controlling absolutely everything on the internet. We'll see if they succeed. Have a great day.